The galaxy watched in silence as the largest invasion fleet ever assembled drifted toward the Sol system. Thousands of alien warships, their metal hulls gleaming like black glass, filled the void between stars. The coalition had gathered from 12 empires, united under one arrogant purpose: to conquer Earth. They called it the Cleansing. To them, humanity was a young, reckless race that dared to claim space too soon. But to the humans, it was something else entirely, a test of survival. From the bridge of the Zorith flagship Dominator, Admiral Keth stood tall, gazing at the blue planet displayed on the holoscreen. "So this is Earth," he sneered, his deep voice echoing through the control chamber. "Small, fragile, unprepared." His officers laughed softly. They had destroyed hundreds of worlds, crushed dozens of civilizations, and now believed that humanity would fall just as easily. Then, suddenly, a light flickered across their communication array. "Incoming signal," the technician said. "Origin, Earth." The room grew quiet. For a moment, only the soft hum of machinery filled the air. "Play it," Keth ordered. The message appeared as a transmission of light, no image, only sound. A calm human voice spoke clearly, emotionless, steady. "To the approaching fleet. You are trespassing in restricted space. Leave immediately. This is your final warning." Then the signal ended. No threats, no insults, no demands. Just that, simple, cold words. The alien bridge erupted in laughter. "That's their warning," one officer mocked. "Pathetic." Keth smirked. "Send a reply," he said. "Tell them we don't answer to children." Across the fleet, the same message reached every ship. Some captains found it amusing, others insulting. None took it seriously. But deep inside the human network, something shifted. Earth Command had expected this response. Inside a fortified bunker beneath the surface of the moon, Commander Hale watched the alien fleet's movement on her screen. Her gray eyes didn't blink. "They received the warning," an officer said. "They're ignoring it." Hale nodded slowly. "Then we proceed. Activate Dawnfire Protocol, Phase 1. Silent machines came to life across the solar system. Defense satellites turned, scanning the void. Energy fields hummed to readiness. Yet, to the alien fleet, everything still looked calm. "No sign of movement," reported Keth's sensors. "Their defenses seem inactive." The Admiral grinned. "They're trying to look brave. Move in closer. We'll take their moon first." The alien ships advanced in perfect formation. Hundreds of destroyers spread in wings, flanked by massive carriers that blotted out starlight. Their confidence filled the void. But then, small details began to unsettle them. A patrol ship on the far right wing stopped responding. "Captain Zoran, report," Keth ordered. No answer. Another ship followed, then another. Their signals vanished without distress calls, without explosions. "Probably interference," a technician said nervously. "The system's radiation," Keth interrupted. "Radiation does not erase ships." His eyes narrowed. "Deploy drones." Swarms of mechanical scouts launched into the dark, scanning for signs of battle. The data they sent back made no sense. Clean space, no debris, no energy traces. The ships were simply gone. Keth's crew whispered among themselves, unease spreading like infection. "Continue forward," he barked. "They are trying to frighten us." But deep inside, even he felt the chill. On Earth, Commander Hale received an update. "Phase 1 complete," the AI announced. "Enemy patrols neutralized." She leaned closer to the console. "No transmissions?" "None," the AI replied. "Stealth operation successful." Hale exhaled quietly. "Good. Begin Phase 2. Shadow nets online." In orbit above Earth, invisible fleets stirred. Human ships, black, silent, cloaked in light-bending armor, spread into formation. They didn't broadcast signals. They didn't make a sound. Each was armed with weapons that no alien had ever seen. They waited for one order, to strike if the fleet crossed the line. Back near Mars, the Dominator continued its advance. Keth walked across the bridge, hands behind his back. "How close are we to their orbit?" he asked. 2 hours, sir," came the reply. "And no resistance?" "None." Keth chuckled. "Then we end this quickly." But just as he spoke, the lights dimmed. The screens flickered. "What's happening?" The technician's voice trembled. "Systems glitch, something's jamming our sensors." Keth slammed a fist against the console. "Find it." The darkness deepened. Outside, stars seemed to disappear one by one, swallowed by black shapes that blended into the void. No one saw the human ships closing in. One of Keth's officers pointed toward the viewport. "Sir, the stars, they're moving." Before he could answer, a low vibration echoed through the hull, like a distant thunderstorm. Keth turned sharply. "Status. Unknown signal detected, sir," said the calm officer. Wait. Same origin as before." "Patch it through," Keth snapped. The bridge went silent again. The same calm human voice filled the air, but this time there was something colder in the tone. "You were warned. This is your last transmission." The message ended, and before anyone could speak, every external sensor on the Dominator went dark. Alarms screamed. Multiple ships offline. "We're losing power. Weapons disabled." Keth shouted, "Raise shields," but the command never completed. The entire fleet systems shut down at once. The bridge lights turned red as panic took over. Keth stared into the dark void outside, and for the first time, he saw something move, massive shadows gliding silently past the fleet. They made no sound, no light, but their presence was undeniable. He didn't know it yet, but the humans had already surrounded them. The first shot hadn't been fired, but the invasion was already over. The Admiral clenched his fists as static filled his comms. Then, through the noise, a final signal reached him, a short coded pulse. His translator displayed only 2 chilling words. "Last warning." The invasion fleet floated in uneasy silence, surrounded by darkness that felt thicker than space itself. After the final warning, no one dared to speak too loudly on the alien bridge. Admiral Keth stood with his eyes fixed on the main screen, watching static where stars should have been. The void around them felt wrong, as if something alive was moving unseen. "Status," he demanded, his voice colder now. "Partial systems restored, Admiral," the technician stammered. "Shields are back, but sensors are blind. We can't see more than a few kilometers." Keth's jaw tightened. "We're surrounded, aren't we?" The crew exchanged nervous looks, but no one answered. Somewhere in the distance, one of their ships exploded without warning. No beam, no missile, just a flash and silence. "Identify the attacker," Keth barked. "We can't, sir." "No energy trace detected." "Nothing." The Admiral's mind raced. Ships don't vanish like this. Not even black hole weapons can erase a signal so cleanly. He turned to the science officer. "Scan for cloaked vessels. Use full spectrum analysis." The officer hesitated. "Sir, we already are. But, it's like the space itself is eating the signals." For the first time, fear crept into Keth's expression. "That's impossible." The officer whispered, "So is vanishing fleets." Thousands of kilometers away, humanity watched everything. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, Commander Hale stood before a massive holographic display. "They're confused," said her aide. "Zorath Command doesn't understand what's happening." Hale nodded slowly. "Good. Keep the shadows active. No engagement yet." Around her, the control room was silent except for the hum of machines. The AI Sentinel's voice spoke softly through the speakers. "Enemy fleet reduced by 6%. No alert transmissions escaped their network." Hale crossed her arms. "Maintain jamming field. Let them feel the dark." The AI obeyed. Invisible waves rippled through space, severing the aliens from one another. Each ship now felt alone, isolated in the endless void. On board the smaller alien frigate Zinthra, Captain Lore stared at his dead communications console. "We've lost contact with command, sir," said his officer. "No signal from anyone. Even subspace is silent." Lore frowned. "That's impossible. Subspace can't be jammed." Then the lights flickered, and a deep vibration shook the ship. "What was that?" "Unknown source," yelled the engineer. Lore turned toward the viewport, and froze. Outside, something vast drifted by. It wasn't a ship, not in the way they understood. It was a shadow, darker than space itself, outlined only by the faint reflection of starlight. And it was moving straight past them. Before anyone could react, the shadow vanished. Then the radar blinked once, and the ship's entire crew heard a whisper through the static of the comms. It wasn't alien. It was human. Just 2 words, cold and clear, too close. The crew froze. Then the ship's lights went out, and the Zinthra was never heard from again. On the Dominator, Keth received the report of another lost squadron. "That's 5 patrols gone," said the technician, voice trembling. "And now our long-range sensors are completely dead." Keth gritted his teeth. "So we're blind and deaf in enemy space." "Admiral," the communications officer began carefully, "the men are starting to panic. Some believe the humans are using ghost ships." Keth slammed his fist against the console. "Enough. There's no such thing as ghosts. They're hiding, using stealth technology." He paused, forcing calm into his voice. "We are the Zorith Empire. One primitive planet cannot defeat us." But even he didn't sound convinced. Every second, something new went wrong. Navigation failures, ghost signals, vanishing ships. The humans weren't fighting with brute force. They were dismantling the invasion fleet piece by piece, quietly and without mercy. Back at Earth Command, Commander Hale watched as another cluster of red dots disappeared from her tactical display. 6 more ships neutralized, the AI announced. No survivors detected. Hale stared at the screen. "Any transmissions intercepted?" "None, Commander. The jamming field remains intact." Hale exhaled slowly. "Then they still don't know what's killing them." The AI paused, its voice almost curious. "Would you like to continue Phase 2, Commander?" Hale hesitated. She remembered the warning they had sent, that final message of peace before destruction. "Not yet," she said finally. "Give them time to understand. Maybe they'll turn back." "Probability of retreat is below 3%, the AI replied flatly. Hale looked down, her voice low. "Then may they remember this as mercy." Hours passed. The alien fleet drifted deeper into the system, now scattered and disorganized. The remaining captains argued over comms filled with static, trying to regroup. "We must retreat," shouted one. "No, push forward," said another. "If we retreat now, the Empire will execute us." Keth listened to their chaos in silence, his eyes hollow. "Quiet," he roared at last. "We hold our ground. Send recon drones. I want to know what's hiding out there." The drones launched silently, thousands of small machines spreading across the void. For minutes, they transmitted clean data, then one by one, their signals cut out. When the last drone vanished, a single transmission remained. The image that appeared on the screen was faint and blurry, filled with static. But through the interference, Keth saw something that turned his blood cold. A shadow, larger than any known vessel, drifting silently toward them. The image froze just as the drone's feed went dead. Keth leaned closer to the screen, whispering to himself. "That's not a ship. That's a mountain." The crew stared in silence. The admiral turned slowly toward his officers. "Send this image to all captains. Let them see what they face." But when they tried, the communication system failed again. The image could not be transmitted. It was as if space itself refused to carry it. The crew felt a deep vibration rumble through the ship, like a heartbeat pulsing through the metal. "Sir," said the technician in a shaking voice, "there's a signal. It's coming from that shadow." Keth's throat went dry. "Translate it." The room fell still as the translator processed the data. Then the human voice returned, echoing through every deck of the Dominator. "Leave now. This is your final warning." The sound carried no anger, no emotion, only certainty. Then silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Finally, Keth looked out into the black void, his reflection cold in the dark glass. He realized that the humans weren't fighting them in rage. They were executing a plan, calm, exact, and absolute. And for the first time in his life, Admiral Keth felt something he had never known before: fear. The void around the alien armada was no longer silent, it was watching. Admiral Keth stood on the bridge of the Dominator, his claws tapping against the railing as his crew worked in tense silence. Every screen glowed with warning lights, every system flickered like it was afraid. "Report," he ordered, voice sharp. "How many ships remain connected?" The communications officer swallowed. "Only 300, Admiral. Out of nearly 1,000. Keth's face hardened. "And the rest?" "Gone. No explosions. No distress calls. They just stopped existing." For a long moment, Keth said nothing. He turned toward the vast emptiness outside the viewport, his eyes narrowing. "Find them," he growled. "No matter what it takes." The technician's hands moved quickly across glowing panels, but the results were the same: nothing. No signals, no echoes, not even radiation. It was as if the missing ships had been erased from reality. The crew exchanged nervous glances, and one whispered, "Maybe they were right. Maybe humans are." Keth cut him off sharply. "Finish that sentence, and I'll have you ejected from the airlock." His voice trembled slightly despite his authority. Even he could feel the fear spreading. Far away, under the cold light of the moon, Commander Hale watched through a wall of holographic projections. Her eyes traced the alien fleet's dwindling numbers. "They're breaking apart," her aide said quietly. "Their formation is collapsing." Hale didn't respond immediately. She simply nodded, her expression unreadable. "Keep Phase 2 active," she ordered. "I want them blind for another 6 hours." The AI Sentinel's calm voice filled the command room. "Human stealth fleet in position. Awaiting authorization to engage." Hale hesitated. "Hold," she said finally. "They still have a chance to retreat." The AI paused, its tone slightly curious. "You believe they will?" Hale looked out toward the holographic Earth. "No. But I want history to know we offered them every chance." Meanwhile, aboard the Dominator, fear turned into argument. "We can't fight what we can't see," shouted one officer. "We should fall back and regroup." "Retreat," Keth barked. "Do you think the Empire forgives failure? We win or we die." He slammed his clawed fist against the control panel, sparks flying. "Scan again. There must be something, some distortion, some anomaly." The technician's hands shook as he obeyed. "Admiral, wait. I'm detecting ripples. In the void. All around us." "Ripples," Keth repeated. "Like what?" "Like something's moving through space itself, bending light." The bridge fell silent. Outside, faint distortions shimmered in the blackness, like invisible waves across the stars. Then one of the officers gasped. "There. To starboard." For a fraction of a second, something massive flickered into visibility. Sleek, angular, and terrifyingly close. A ship, black as shadow, gliding silently beside them. Before anyone could react, it vanished again. "What was that?" Keth demanded. "Replay it." But the recording showed nothing. The data had been erased the instant it was captured. "No trace," said the technician. "It's like the universe itself refuses to remember it." The crew stared at each other in stunned silence. Then, without warning, alarms screamed across the bridge. "Energy spike behind us," shouted a voice. "Shields up," Keth roared, but the command came too late. A flash of light filled the viewport, silent, clean, and surgical. One of their dreadnoughts was cut in half by an invisible beam. The halves drifted apart slowly, glowing molten red along the edges. No explosion followed. It was as if space itself had sliced it open. The bridge fell quiet. No one moved. "They fired once," whispered Keth, "and they hit perfectly." On Earth, Commander Hale received confirmation. "First engagement successful," said the AI. "0 human casualties. 1 enemy dreadnought destroyed." Hale's expression didn't change. "Maintain distance," she said. "Do not escalate yet." The AI paused. "They will not surrender." Hale's voice dropped lower. "Then they will understand what happens when you ignore mercy." Outside, the hidden human fleet began to shift positions. Hundreds of stealth cruisers moved like ghosts, invisible to radar, each aligning for the next strike. Their engines made no light, their hulls absorbed every wavelength. It was as if the void itself had chosen sides. Back on the Dominator, chaos took over. Shields collapsing on the forward line. Communications down across sectors 3 to 5. "We're losing command ships." Keth's claws dug into the railing. "Fire everything," he shouted. "Blanket the area." The fleet unleashed a storm of plasma and missiles into the darkness. Explosions lit up space like a dying sun, but they hit nothing. Every weapon passed harmlessly through the void. The humans weren't there anymore. They had already moved. And then, one by one, the alien weapons turned, spinning in midspace, and came back toward their own ships. The bridge erupted in panic. "Our missiles are reversing course. Shut them down. They're being hacked." The next moment, half the alien formation vanished in a chain of silent explosions. "Who is doing this?" Keth roared. "Find their command ship." "We can't," the technician cried. "They're everywhere, and nowhere." Keth slammed his fists against the console. "Then we hit everything. Fire in all directions." But before his order could be executed, the Dominator's power flickered again. The lights dimmed, replaced by a red emergency glow. A deep hum filled the air, rising slowly until it became a low, vibrating tone. The comms officer's eyes widened. "Admiral, it's them. They're broadcasting again." Keth turned sharply. "Put it through." The voice that came through was calm, emotionless, and unmistakably human. "You had your warning," it said. "This is mercy's end." The voice vanished, replaced by silence. Outside, the black shapes flickered again, hundreds of them, this time clearly visible for a moment. Human ships, sleek and angular, surrounded the alien fleet in every direction. Then the darkness swallowed them once more. Keth felt his throat tighten. "They were right under us," he whispered. "All this time." Then the attacks began again, faster, cleaner. Every alien ship that tried to fire was destroyed instantly. Some were split apart by invisible beams, others simply imploded without a sound. The fleet's formation shattered completely. "We're losing everything," shouted the tactical officer. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Keth stood frozen for a moment. The Empire had promised him glory, but all he could see now was annihilation. "Transmit surrender," he whispered finally. "If they will accept it." But the comms officer looked up, pale and shaking. "Admiral, they're not responding. They've cut all channels." Keth turned slowly toward the viewport. For a brief second, one of the human ships uncloaked right in front of him. Its surface shimmered with strange black energy, its design unlike anything the Empire had ever built. On its hull were glowing white letters, EHS Retribution. Keth stared in awe. "Humans, how?" The ship's lights flared once, and then it vanished into the dark again. The admiral's voice dropped to a whisper. We never stood a chance. In the command bunker on the moon, Commander Hale watched the live feed in silence. The AI's voice broke through softly. Enemy fleet is collapsing. Should we finish them, Commander? Hale didn't answer immediately. Her gaze was distant, her tone cold when she finally spoke. The first human strike did not begin with thunder or chaos. It began with silence. The alien armada floated in the black sea of space, still frozen from the sudden appearance of the human fleet. They stared at the thousands of dark ships surrounding them, their outlines barely visible, like shadows shaped into war machines. Admiral Keth stood motionless on the bridge of the Dominator, his eyes locked on the largest of the human vessels. They've surrounded us completely, his officer whispered. Keth didn't reply. His mind was blank, his throat dry. Before he could think of a command, the void outside erupted with light. Thin beams of white energy shot silently across the darkness, cutting through alien hulls with mathematical precision. There were no explosions, only silent destruction. Ships fell apart like glass breaking underwater. In the time it took to breathe, 50 Zorith vessels were gone. Return fire. Keth screamed, his voice breaking. The fleet responded instantly, unleashing a storm of plasma and missiles into every direction, but their weapons never reached the target. The moment they fired, every projectile froze mid-flight, then turned back. The human ships had hacked their systems, redirecting their own weapons against them. One by one, alien ships detonated under their own fire. The bridge shook violently as the shockwave hit the Dominator. Shields holding at 50%, shouted the technician. Keth gripped the console. How can they do this? What are they using? Unknown, the science officer said. Their technology, it doesn't follow any known logic. Far away, deep beneath Earth's surface, Commander Hale watched from the Lunar Command Center. Her face was calm but pale under the glow of holographic screens. Strike confirmed, reported her aide. Multiple enemy ships neutralized. No human losses. Hale nodded slowly. Good. Proceed to Phase 3. Minimal force. No unnecessary targets. The AI Sentinel's voice spoke next, smooth and precise. Phase 3 initiated. Estimated time to total fleet collapse, 17 minutes. Hale's eyes didn't move from the main display. Keep them alive long enough to understand what's happening. Understood, the AI replied. Demonstration continues. Back in space, panic consumed the alien fleet. Distress calls screamed through broken channels. We can't lock onto anything. Our targeting systems are hijacked. Engineering reports full AI override. The bridge of the Dominator was a storm of alarms and chaos. Sparks flew from damaged panels, the air thick with smoke. Shut down all AI systems. Keth roared. Manual control only. But it was too late. The screens flashed with human symbols, lines of alien code replaced by an unfamiliar interface. A calm digital voice spoke through their systems. It wasn't human, but it wasn't alien either. Unauthorized weapons detected. Deactivating. Every console on the ship went dark. The alien crew froze as they realized what had just happened. Their ship no longer obeyed them. Keth turned toward the viewport and saw the impossible. The massive human flagship EHS Retribution moved forward, its hull glowing faintly with silver energy. The alien fleet's remaining ships opened fire in desperation, but the blasts curved around the human vessel like water around stone. It took no damage. No effect. Their shields, the science officer began, but Keth cut him off. That's not a shield. That's something else. The Retribution fired again. A single white beam lanced forward, piercing 3 alien cruisers in one shot. They didn't explode, they simply disintegrated into dust. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the engines. Keth's officers looked at him with terrified eyes, waiting for an order he didn't have. Admiral, one whispered. Should we surrender? Keth hesitated. His pride fought against reason, but the truth was clear. They had lost before the first shot was fired. Then a new voice filled the air, human, calm, and distant. "This is Earth Command. You were warned. This engagement will not continue." The transmission played across every alien ship. The voice had no emotion, no anger, only finality. "Cease all activity. Lower weapons. Your presence in soul space is over." The message repeated once, then stopped. The aliens hesitated, some lowering their shields, others too afraid to move. Keth's hands shook as he stared at the empty space outside. "They're telling us to surrender," he muttered. "They think they can command us?" His rage returned for one last moment. "Target their lead ship. Fire everything we have left." The Dominator's remaining batteries flared, hurling plasma bolts toward the Retribution. For a second, it looked almost brave. Then the human flagship vanished from sight, completely gone. "Where did it go?" cried the navigation officer. "It just disappeared." "No, it's—" another began, but before he could finish, the Retribution reappeared directly above them, close enough to fill the entire viewport. Its underbelly glowed with symbols of light, forming a pattern the aliens couldn't read. Then, without sound or movement, every weapon aboard the Dominator shut down. The alien bridge lights flickered and died. Total darkness swallowed them. In that void, they heard the voice again, now inside their own comms. "You were warned," it said. "Mercy is over." A sudden flash blinded the bridge. The alien crew shielded their eyes as a beam of light tore through their own ship's hull. Alarms wailed. "Hull breach," someone shouted. "We're losing containment." The Dominator began to crumble under its own weight, metal shrieking as atmosphere vented into space. Keth stumbled, gripping the railing as sparks flew overhead. "Abandon ship," he roared, but there was nowhere to run. The ship split in half, and the Admiral fell to his knees, watching his command die around him. As the flames spread, he looked out through the shattered viewport and saw the human fleet moving methodically, finishing what they started. Every attack was clean, controlled, merciless. Meanwhile, Commander Hale watched the final moments unfold on her display. Her aide whispered, "They're done. The Dominator is breaking apart." Hale said nothing. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "End combat sequence. All human ships disengage." The AI acknowledged. Enemy resistance neutralized. 90% of hostile fleet destroyed. Remaining vessels attempting retreat. Hale turned toward the main hologram. "Let them run. Leave survivors to spread the message." "Understood," said the AI. Broadcasting warning to all channels. Across space, every surviving alien ship received a single transmission from Earth Command. The message was brief, just 3 words glowing in white against the dark. "You were warned." As the human fleet withdrew into the void, the silence returned. Wreckage floated across the stars like ghosts of a forgotten war. From his damaged escape pod, Admiral Keth stared at the destruction. Thousands of ships gone, an empire broken in a single day. He whispered to himself, voice shaking. "They said they were peaceful, and they meant it. But this is what peace looks like when you ignore their warning." His pod drifted through the debris, alone, powerless. In the distance, the faint light of Earth shimmered, quiet and untouchable. The humans didn't chase. They didn't celebrate. They simply vanished into the dark, leaving the galaxy with one terrifying truth: when humanity gives a final warning, it truly means the last. For days, the galaxy whispered about the destruction of the invasion fleet. Every channel carried fragments of intercepted human transmissions, warnings repeated again and again. "Leave soul space. Do not return." Entire systems that once mocked humanity now fell silent, their leaders frozen in disbelief. But not everyone accepted it. In the heart of the Zorith Empire, High Commander Tereth slammed his clawed hand against the table, the sound echoing through the vast war chamber. "One fleet lost doesn't end this," he shouted. We are the Zoreth Dominion. We've conquered 10 species stronger than humans. Around him, his advisors exchanged uneasy glances. None dared remind him that the weaker humans had just erased an armada of 3,000 ships in less than 20 minutes. "Sir," said one cautiously, "our analysts still can't explain their technology. Their weapons didn't use energy we can track. It's like they rewrote the laws of physics." Tereth leaned forward, eyes burning. "Then rewrite them back. I want scientists, spies, and every ship we have left working to find out how they did it. No one humiliates the Zoreth and lives to tell the story." But even as he spoke, a flicker of fear crept into his voice. Deep down, he knew something had changed, something fundamental. Far away, on the lunar base orbiting Earth, Commander Hale stood before a holographic projection of the human fleet. The AI Sentinel hovered beside her, its glowing form flickering softly. "Enemy reinforcements detected in Zoreth sectors," the AI reported. "They appear to be mobilizing, but not yet advancing." Hale nodded. "They'll come again. Pride won't let them stay away." "Should we prepare a counteroffensive?" the AI asked. Hale stared at the holographic map, thousands of enemy systems glowing red. "Not yet," she said finally. "If they come to us again, they'll learn what happens when humanity stops holding back." The AI paused. "Commander, may I ask a question?" Hale raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead. Why show mercy at all? Strategic analysis predicts a 99% chance of total victory if we strike now." Hale's gaze hardened. "Because mercy is part of who we are. But if they mistake it for weakness again—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Back in Zoreth space, the Emperor himself was receiving reports. Holograms of burning ships, intercepted transmissions, and the last moments of the Dominator filled the throne room. "They destroyed us without effort," murmured one minister. "And they didn't even pursue. It's like they wanted us to survive, to see." The Emperor sat motionless, eyes cold. "A warning," he whispered. "They sent a message written in fire." "Shall we respond, my Emperor?" asked another. The Emperor's claws tapped against the armrest. "Yes," he said slowly. "But not with war. Not yet. We must understand them first." He looked toward the distant projection of Earth, glowing like a small blue gem. "Tell the Science Ministry to begin Project Echo. We'll learn how humans fight, and how they think." Meanwhile, deep in the wreckage fields left behind by the battle, a lone ship drifted quietly. It was a human salvage vessel, the EHS Nomad, collecting remains for analysis. Inside, engineer Mira Talon moved carefully through the debris with her drones, scanning twisted alien metal. "Most of this tech's useless," she muttered. "Completely fried. Their systems couldn't even handle our signal interference." Her partner, Jace Wren, floated beside her. "Still gives me chills," he said softly. "Seeing all this wreckage, and knowing we didn't even go full power." Mira nodded. "That's what scares me too. What happens if we ever have to?" For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavy. Then Myra's scanner beeped. "Hold on," she said. "I've got a signal, survivor pod, still active." They followed the faint trace to a drifting escape pod, the one carrying Admiral Keth. His life signs were weak but stable. "He's alive," Jace said, surprised. "Command's gonna want him." They pulled the pod aboard and brought it to containment. Hours later, Keth woke in a dim white room. A human soldier stood at the door, silent. Across from him sat Commander Hale. "Admiral Keth," she said calmly. "You're aboard a human vessel. You're safe for now." Keth blinked, confused. Why save me?" Hale folded her arms. "Because you're going to carry a message." He frowned. "Another warning?" She shook her head. "No. A truth. One your leaders need to hear." Hale leaned forward, her voice quiet but firm. We don't want your worlds. We don't want your resources. We only want peace. But if your empire attacks again, we won't defend, we'll erase. Do you understand the difference? Keth swallowed hard. You can't defeat an entire empire. Hale's eyes didn't move. You saw what we did to your fleet. That wasn't war. That was restraint. Keth said nothing. He could see in her eyes she wasn't bluffing. Humanity had evolved beyond fear, and beyond mercy when provoked. Hale stood up. You'll be sent back to your people. Tell them the truth. Tell them what happens when they mistake our silence for weakness. When Keth returned to Zorith space days later, the Empire greeted him as a ghost. He stood before the High Council, recounting every moment, the human ships, the technology, the calmness in Hale's eyes. They don't fight like us, he said. They fight like something older. Something that's seen too many wars and decided never again, unless forced. The council chamber was silent. Even Tereth said nothing. The Emperor finally spoke. And what do you suggest, Admiral? Keth looked up slowly. I suggest we listen. Because if we don't, there won't be anything left to listen with. That night, across 100 worlds, the Zorith military went into quiet lockdown. Fleets were recalled. Research divisions started decoding the fragments of human tech salvaged from the ruins. Some wanted revenge. Others wanted understanding. But all shared the same thought: the humans had crossed a line of power that no empire had ever reached before. And yet, they didn't conquer. They warned. It was the most terrifying message of all. Meanwhile, on Earth, Hale stood again before the stars, watching distant flashes where enemy transmissions tried to trace human signals. They're watching us, the AI said. Hale smiled faintly. Good. Let them watch. Let them realize what happens when humanity gives a final warning. The AI's lights dimmed slightly. Do you believe they'll listen this time? Hale turned away from the stars. They will, she said softly. Or they'll vanish trying. As she walked away, the stars reflected in the glass like distant eyes, silent, waiting, knowing that the galaxy's greatest fear had just begun to understand what humanity truly was. Weeks passed, but the silence between the Zorith Empire and humanity was heavier than any war. Across the galaxy, diplomats, soldiers, and spies whispered the same question. How did humans do it? How did a single species, once dismissed as primitive, break an armada with such ease? Rumors spread faster than light. Some said humans used living weapons made from stars. Others claimed they commanded time itself. But the truth was simpler, and far more terrifying. They understood war better than anyone else. In the Zorith capital, High Commander Tereth stood before the Emperor once again, fury and humiliation burning behind his calm mask. We can't live under their shadow forever, he said. Every system mocks us. Even our allies doubt our strength. We must respond. The Emperor's golden eyes flicked toward him. Respond how, Commander? With another fleet? Another warning ignored. Teretha's voice hardened. With intelligence. With patience. We'll infiltrate their systems, learn their secrets, and turn their own power against them. The Emperor was silent for a moment, then nodded. Then begin. But do not provoke them. Humanity's silence is louder than their weapons. Far away, on Earth's lunar command, Commander Hale watched as her team monitored incoming signals from deep space. They're probing us again, her aide reported. Zorith drones, coded transmissions hidden in asteroid networks. Hale nodded slowly. Let them. We expected this. Should we intercept? No, she said. I want them to see what we want them to see. She turned to the AI Sentinel. Initiate the Veil Protocol. The AI's holographic form flickered with a faint glow. Confirmed. Deploying false data networks and decoy transmissions. Within seconds, hundreds of false signal trails appeared across the system. Fake ship designs, dummy research files, entire fleets that didn't exist. Hale smiled faintly. Let's see how long they chase shadows. Meanwhile, in a dark laboratory deep beneath the Zorith capital, scientists crowded around a glowing piece of alien metal, a fragment of what they believed was human technology. "We've been studying this for weeks," said one researcher. "It doesn't follow any physical rule we know. When we try to scan it, it resists." Another scientist frowned. "Resists?" "Yes," the first replied. "It changes itself. Like it knows we're watching." They ran another scan. The fragment pulsed once, then went still. Suddenly, every monitor in the lab went black. The scientists froze. On the main screen, human symbols appeared, simple, cold words: "Do not touch what you do not understand." Then every system shut down. Alarms blared. Within seconds, the fragment dissolved into dust. The lead researcher stared in horror. "It was never dead," he whispered. "It was watching us." Back on the lunar base, Hale received the report from her intelligence team. "Zorith Labs just triggered one of our self-guarded fragments," her aide said. "Message delivered." Hale nodded, her expression unreadable. "Good. Now they know we're watching too." The AI spoke softly beside her. "Commander, they will not stop. Their fear has turned to obsession." Hale sighed. "I know. But obsession makes mistakes. And when they make one, we'll be ready." In Zorith space, Admiral Keth, once the proud leader of the defeated armada, had become an unwanted ghost among his people. Many blamed him for the loss, calling him a coward for returning alive. But some listened. Secretly, a growing faction within the Empire began to follow his warnings. Keth met with them in abandoned chambers, speaking quietly. "You think I fear them because they're powerful," he told them. "No. I fear them because they don't want power. They want peace, and that's what makes them unstoppable. A species that doesn't crave control can't be controlled." His followers nodded, silent and grim. "If we keep pushing," Keth continued, "they'll end us. And they won't do it out of hatred. They'll do it out of necessity." But High Commander Tereth had other plans. He watched from his private war room as data from the spies began to pour in. Human ship designs, weapon models, AI schematics, his aide reported. "They're fragmented, but enough to begin reconstruction." Tereth smiled coldly. "Finally. They think they're untouchable. We'll prove them wrong." Yet he didn't know that every piece of data he had just received came from the Veil Protocol, false information planted by humanity itself. As the Zorith engineers worked tirelessly to rebuild what they thought were human systems, they unknowingly built a trap. Days later, the test began. "Powering up human-derived reactor prototype," said one technician. The reactor core pulsed with bright white light. "Energy levels stabilizing. Wait. No, increasing. It's not stopping." The alarm screamed as the reactor overloaded, releasing a burst of energy that vaporized the facility in an instant. Across the Empire, similar tests ended the same way: fire, light, and death. Dozens of worlds went dark. The false data had done its job. When word reached the Emperor, the entire council erupted into panic. "They tricked us," shouted one advisor. "They fed us lies." The Emperor's claws clenched. "No," he said softly. "They warned us. And we didn't listen." He looked toward Tereth, who stood frozen in silence, unable to speak. "Do you still believe you can control them, Commander?" Tereth lowered his head, shame burning in his chest. "I believed we could match them," he whispered. "Now I know we never stood a chance." Meanwhile on Earth, Commander Hale watched as her screens lit up with red marks, every failed Zorith test glowing across the map. "They took the bait," said her aide. Hale's face was calm. "And now they know what happens when they touch what isn't theirs." The AI's tone was curious. "Commander, why continue to warn them? Wouldn't destruction end the threat?" Hale looked out the viewport at the blue curve of Earth below. "Because destruction teaches nothing. But fear makes them think. That night, in the Emperor's private chamber, Keth was summoned once again. You spoke of restraint, the Emperor said. You were right. Humanity fights wars without hate. We fight for pride, and pride is what's killing us. Keth bowed his head. Then what will you do, my Emperor? The Emperor turned toward the window, staring at the endless stars. For now, he said slowly, we wait, we learn, and we remember their words. Back on the lunar base, Hale walked through the silent command deck, stars glinting beyond the glass. The galaxy was trembling, and humanity knew it. They'll come again, said her aide quietly. Eventually. Hale nodded. Yes. But next time, they'll come differently, not with weapons, but with fear. She paused, her voice turning low. And when that happens, the galaxy will finally understand. We never wanted to rule the stars. We just wanted to be left alone. The AI's voice echoed faintly through the quiet room. And what if they still don't listen? Hale's eyes reflected the void outside. Then, she said softly, we'll remind them what silence means. The Zorith Empire was breaking from within. What started as whispers of fear had turned into open division. Some wanted peace with humanity, believing the warnings were mercy. Others demanded vengeance, even after the disastrous reactor experiments that burned half their research worlds to ash. High Commander Tereth was no longer hailed as a hero. He was seen as the man who led them into ruin. Yet he still refused to surrender. We are not beaten, he told his generals, standing before a vast hologram of Earth. The humans are powerful, yes, but they are not gods. They have weaknesses. They rely too much on technology. If we strike fast, strike their communications, we might cut their control before they can react. His advisors looked uneasy. You want to attack again? One asked quietly. After everything? Teretha's eyes burned with pride. This time, it will be different. This time, they won't see us coming. What he didn't know was that the humans had already seen everything. Far above the moon, in the silent orbiting fortress called EHS Horizon, Commander Hale stood surrounded by holographic data streams. We're detecting Zorith movements in 3 sectors, her aide reported. Looks like they're gathering stealth fleets. Hale nodded. They're coming again. Prepare sentinel protocols across all outposts. The AI beside her flickered into view, its glowing form reflecting the calm blue of the holograms. Commander, are we to intercept? Hale's tone was quiet but certain. No. This time, we let them move closer. Let them believe they've surprised us. You intend to bait them? The AI asked. I intend to teach them. Hale turned toward the viewport, watching Earth's shadow drift across the stars. They need to learn that every warning has an end. 2 weeks later, the Zorith stealth fleet crossed into human-controlled space. Thousands of black ships glided silently through the void, cloaked in energy-shifting shields. They didn't fire, didn't announce themselves. To them, the humans were blind. On the bridge of his flagship, Tereth watched as his fleet entered the dark zone. No defenses, his sensor officer said. It's quiet. Almost too quiet. Tereth smiled. They think we won't return. That arrogance will destroy them. But the moment he finished speaking, every console on his bridge flickered. The crew looked around, confused. Their readings blurred, static cutting through their displays. Then, without warning, the void outside changed. Dozens, no hundreds, of massive human ships uncloaked all at once, surrounding them like predators in the dark. Teretha's smile vanished. How did they? Before he could finish, a transmission filled the comms. It was a human voice, calm and clear. You ignored the warning. You entered restricted space. This is your last mistake. The message repeated once, then ended. Shields up. Tereth barked. Prepare all weapons. But as his crew moved, their ship systems froze again. The lights dimmed. One by one, every weapon control went offline. "They're overriding us," his technician shouted. "They've hacked our systems again." "Cut the link," Tereth roared. "Go manual." But it was too late. On the main screen, human symbols appeared, the same ones seen by their scientists weeks ago. The message was short: "You didn't listen." Then the human fleet opened fire. But it wasn't a normal attack. There were no explosions, no plasma storms. The human ships emitted pulses, bursts of invisible energy that shut down every system across the Zoreth fleet. Engines died. Shields vanished. Power drained like water down a hole. Within seconds, thousands of alien ships drifted helplessly, powerless in space. Tereth slammed his fist against the console. "No. Not again." He turned to his officers. "Send a distress signal to the Empire." But even the communications array was dead. Outside, the human fleet began to move closer, silent and slow. In the lead ship, Commander Hale stood at her command center, her voice steady. "Disable only. No destruction. They need to understand this isn't war, it's a reminder." Her aide nodded. "All enemy ships neutralized. No fatalities reported." Hale looked toward the hologram of the Zoreth flagship. "Open a direct channel to Tereth." The AI connected instantly. The image of Tereth appeared on the display, his face pale with rage. "What do you want from us?" he growled. Hale's reply was simple. "Nothing. You came to us. You attacked again. And once more, we stopped you without a single death. Does that tell you something?" Tereth sneered. "It tells me you fear real battle." Hale stepped closer to the screen. "No, Commander. It tells you we don't need battle." Her voice grew colder. "If we wanted you gone, you wouldn't even have time to scream." The transmission ended, and the human fleet vanished again, simply blinked out of existence. When Tereth's ship finally regained power hours later, the battlefield was empty. His entire fleet was drifting, defeated without a single shot fired in return. He collapsed into his chair, shaking with silent fury. "What are they?" he whispered. His officer looked at him helplessly. "Sir, maybe they're not like us." Tereth didn't answer. He stared out the viewport into the endless void. "No," he muttered. "They're worse." When news of the failed attack reached the Zoreth capital, chaos erupted. The council chambers filled with shouting. "They didn't even destroy us this time," one minister yelled. "They could have, and they didn't." Another slammed the table. "Then they're toying with us. We're nothing but insects to them." The emperor sat silently, his claws tightening around his throne. "Enough," he said finally. The room went quiet. "Every empire in the galaxy will hear of this. Every ruler will learn that humanity has given its last warning. From now on, the Zoreth will not provoke them again." The council bowed in silence, but some faces still burned with pride, and that pride would not stay buried for long. Back on Earth, Commander Hale received the post-battle report. "No human casualties," her aide said. "All systems secure. The enemy fleet has retreated." Hale nodded, her expression calm. "Good. Let them go." The AI flickered beside her. "Commander, how long do you believe the peace will last?" Hale looked out at the stars. "As long as fear holds them back. But pride always returns." The AI paused. "And when it does?" Hale's gaze hardened. "Then mercy ends." As the human fleet returned to their hidden bases, the galaxy once again fell silent. Yet beneath that silence, something dark was brewing. On distant worlds, whispers began to spread, not of defeat, but of revenge. Some alien leaders refused to believe that a single species could hold such power. They began to plan, to unite, to prepare for a war that would test the limits of existence itself. And deep within the heart of humanity's command center, Hale knew it. "They'll come again," she said softly, watching the stars burn like cold fire. "And next time, they won't come alone." The AI's light dimmed, and the room fell quiet, leaving only one truth echoing in the dark void: humanity had warned them. Twice. There wouldn't be a third.